When Jin suggested we explore the old Harlow Asylum at the edge of town, I didn't hesitate. As a semi-pro photographer with a penchant for the abandoned and decrepit, this was right up my alley. Jin, a local blogger eager to boost her Creepy Sights series, figured it would be perfect for Halloween. The asylum, shuttered since the late 80s after a slew of unexplained patient deaths, was the kind of place you'd expect such stories to come out of. The October afternoon was overcast as we parked our car near the rusted gates of Harlow Asylum. The sprawling Gothic structure loomed above us, its windows like blind eyes staring into nothingness. The air was crisp, carrying the smell of decay and old leaves. As we ducked under a gap in the fence, the quiet was unsettling, the sort you could almost chew on. We entered through a side door. It hung off its hinges, groaning slightly as we pushed against it. Inside, the atmosphere was stifling, heavy with the stench of mildew and something faintly metallic, like dried blood. My camera clicked and whirred as I captured the hallway lined with peeling paint and cracked tiles. Jin, notebook in hand, muttered notes under her breath, her flashlight beam dancing over faded graffiti and old patient files strewn on the floor. We reached the administrative wing. The air grew noticeably colder here. I shrugged it off as poor insulation, but the chill seeped through my jacket. As we sifted through debris, Jin paused, looking towards the staircase leading to the basement. "Maybe we'll find more down there," she suggested, her voice slightly shaky. The basement, not the place I wanted to end up, but my agreement was automatic. "Yeah, let's check it out." Descending the stairs, each step creaked ominously under our weight. The basement was shrouded in near-total darkness, our flashlights barely cutting through. That's when I first heard it, a low, continuous sound, like water dripping. We followed the sound to what appeared to be an old hydrotherapy room. Pools and broken tubs were scattered around, their edges jagged. The dripping grew louder, more insistent. Jin pointed her flashlight toward the far corner where a large pool sat, its contents obscured by darkness. "Something in there," she whispered, her voice trembling now. I raised my camera, the flash ready. As I stepped closer, the air turned icy, my breath visible in the beam of the flashlight. I leaned over the pool's edge, the camera flash firing into the murky water. We both stared at the display, waiting for the image to clear. The photo revealed not water, but countless tiny, wriggling forms, larvae maybe, but unlike any I'd known. As we processed this, a sudden surge came from the pool, as if something below reacted to the flash. We stumbled back, hearts racing. The building seemed to respond too, groaning deeply, unsettlingly alive. "We should go," I muttered, more to myself than to Jin. But as we turned to leave, the sound of our retreat was mocked by a new noise, soft, rhythmic thumping, growing louder, approaching from the depths beyond the hydrotherapy room. It was a sound inexplicably alien yet disturbingly familiar, like a heartbeat amplified and distorted. Jin clutched my arm, her knuckles white. "What is that?" She barely mouthed the words. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. The comfort of denial left me as the thumping grew closer, a tangible presence that seemed to push against the very air. With every ounce of reluctance, we moved, not wanting to find out the source of the sound, each flashlight beam trembling as we hurried back toward the stairs. The thump seemed to echo in my chest, syncing with my own racing heart. Each step upward felt agonizingly slow, the sounds from below never ceasing. We reached the ground level, the exit within sight, when suddenly all light from our flashlights sputtered and died, plunging us into an oppressive darkness. Panic set in, raw and fierce. "We need to keep moving," I managed to say, groping forward in the dark. Jin didn't reply. I reached out, my hand finding only empty space where she should have been. "Jin," my voice broke the stifling silence, but there was no answer. Only the thumping, now joined by a new, chilling sound, a soft, sorrowful weeping echoing through the halls. Where it was coming from, I couldn't tell. Was it Jinn? Was it something else? I was alone, surrounded by the dark history of Harlow Asylum, every shadow seeming to shift and whisper of past horrors. What lurked within these walls was no longer just a subject for photographs or blogs. It was real, and I had to find Jinn, praying that we weren't too late. Guided more by instinct than reason, I shivered as I advanced, dragging footsteps resounding on the cracked tiles. The weeping morphed into a desolate hum, a sad lullaby that seemed to seep from the very walls. Every corner I turned, every door I nudged open, heightened the hollow feeling inside me, a blend of dread and desperation. The asylum seemed to stretch endlessly, corridors forking into more shadowed hallways, each appearing identical, yet somehow increasingly menacing. I called for Jinn periodically, my voice growing hoarser each time, met only by the mocking echo of my own fear. The lamenting wail continued, its source as elusive as the hope of finding Jinn unharmed. As I passed a row of derelict rooms, a sudden movement caught the corner of my eye. I paused, heart pounding. It was a curtain fluttering in what must have been a breeze, but there were no open windows, just sealed cracks and stifled air. Dread settled in deeper. Every logical explanation faltered against the asylum's surreal aura. I pushed forward, my flashlight flickering as if struggling against an unseen force. Then came a softer sound, almost lost beneath the otherworldly choir of cries, a series of low murmurs. Following the sounds led me to what was once the patient's common room. Amidst broken chairs and a toppled vending machine, the murmur became clearer, a chant of sorts, but in a language twisted and unfamiliar. Standing there, frozen in place, I felt a profound sense of intrusion, as if I'd walked into a congregation invisible, yet palpably present. The unseen attendees paused, the murmuring stopped, and the oppressive silence returned. My breath seemed loud, every inhalation an indiscretion in this hallowed decay. Squinting into the shadows, I spotted a sliver of light beneath a warped door at the room's far end. Hope surged, a beacon in the suffocating gloom. I advanced slowly, every nerve ending alight with the electric fear of what might lie beyond. Hand trembling, I pushed open the door. It resisted momentarily as if reluctant to reveal its secrets, then gave way to a narrow staircase descending further into darkness. The lullaby drifted up more urgently now, as though beckoning me downward. A cold draft brushed my face, carrying a faint whisper. "Come." Descending felt like moving against the current, the air growing colder, the narrow walls pressing in. The stairs ended abruptly at a small landing with a cracked, heavy door. The singing was louder now, a heart-wrenching melody that resonated with the very structure of the building. With a push that seemed to require every ounce of my strength, I opened the door. The room beyond was bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Candles, hundreds of them, flickered around the perimeter, their flames unnaturally still. And there, in the center of this candlelit sanctum, was Jinn. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed, face serene yet pale. Surrounding her in a tight circle were figures. Not quite solid, they shimmered with a translucent, grayish hue, their features blurred as if rubbed away by time. My heart caught in my throat. "Jinn," I called, my voice a strained croak. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at me, a flicker of confusion crossing her features before relief poured in. The figures turned slowly, their movements eerily synchronized, a congregation of lost souls, their attention now fixed on me. Jinn stood up, stepping cautiously toward me. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered, not in warning, but as a mournful declaration. The figures remained still, their gaze unblinking and unnervingly patient. In the dim candlelight, memories seemed to flicker in their depths, echoes of old pains and unspent lives. "What are they?" I managed, my mouth dry. Jin glanced back at the circle. They are the forgotten, the ones who linger. They wanted me to join them to forget. She paused, swallowing hard. But I remembered you came with me. We needed to leave, yet the path to the door seemed interminably long, every candle a watching eye. Jin grasped my hand, her grip both reassuring and urgent. We need to go now, she said. As we turned to leave, the figures began their morning song again, louder, more insistent. It chased us as we ascended the stairs, a sorrowful dirge that seemed to bleed into the walls. Emerging into the night air was like breaking the surface of a dark ocean, gasping for breath. We didn't stop running until the asylum was a mere silhouette against the starless sky, foreboding, but finally, mercifully, distant. As we collapsed beside the car, the silence was a balm, though beneath it, the echoes of that haunting melody lingered, a reminder of the abyss we narrowly escaped. We drove off, leaving Harlow Asylum and its spectral congregation behind. But the shadows cast that night followed us, whispering that some doors, once opened, are not so easily closed. The road unfurled dark and endless before us as we fled from the asylum, the engines hum a tenuous link to reality after the night's spectral encounters. Our headlights sliced through the darkness, but the deeper gloom seemed almost impervious to our artificial light, devouring it hungrily. Jin sat rigid beside me, her gaze fixed on the unwinding road, her fingers gripping her knees so tightly, her knuckles whitened. I thought I wouldn't make it back, Jin murmured, her voice barely rising above a whisper. The admission felt heavy, laden with images of those gray, shimmering figures who had sought to make her one of them. I heard them, even in silence. They talked about oblivion, about peace, and forgetting everything. Her words trailed off as a shudder passed through her. I reached out, letting my hand rest lightly on her arm, an offer of solace she neither accepted nor rebuked. She was with me, yet parts of her seemed irrevocably tethered to that bleak sanctum beneath Harlow Asylum. An hour passed, then two. The night remained oppressively silent, as if the world held its breath. No owl hooted, no cricket sang. It was as though the asylum's unyielding shadow had stretched far beyond its decaying walls and followed us, smothering all natural sound. At last, we turned onto the gravel path leading to Jin's old weatherboard house, which stood stark and somber under the sliver of a waning moon. The house, usually welcoming, now took on the grim aspect of a mausoleum. As we walked to the front door, the gravel crunched under our feet, a harsh sound in the enveloping silence. Inside, even the familiar seemed alien, as if we viewed everything through a distorted lens. As Jin boiled water for coffee in the kitchen, I slumped onto the worn sofa, exhaustion gnawing at my bones. The house creaked as it settled, natural sounds, I told myself, yet each creak felt like a whispered secret. "Can't stay here," Jin said quietly as she set a cup before me. Her voice was hollow, vacant. "They'll look for me, those things, they won't give up easily." Dread pooled in my stomach. "Where will you go?" "Anywhere, nowhere," Jin shrugged, a lost, helpless gesture. "Somewhere they can't reach me." Her eyes met mine, holding a depth of horror that words could scant convey. "You ought to leave too, before they remember you." The silence that followed was fraught with the unspoken, with fears too chilling to voice. We drank our coffee, the last normal act in what had ceased to be a normal world. Night deepened around us, and fatigue eventually claimed me, dragging me into a reluctant sleep where I floated in a void, hearing the dismal chorus from the asylum's depths. I awoke with a start, heart pounding, to find the room shrouded in darkness, the power out, the world outside absolute in its blackness. Groping for my phone, I switched on the flashlight, the beam feeble in the thick darkness. Jin was not on the sofa where she'd been lying. Panic flared. "Jin!" I called out, my voice hoarse with fear. No answer came, only the sound of the house settling, or perhaps not just the house. Holding my breath, I stood, my phone's light sweeping across the room in shaky arcs. There, by the window, I caught the briefest glimpse of a figure, a shade less solid than the shadows around it, staring out into the dark. Jin, I stepped closer, my body tensed for flight or fight. The figure turned, and relief washed through me as the light revealed Jin's face, though it was pale, drawn with deep, harrowing circles under her eyes. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling with terror. "Outside, waiting." Approaching the window, I peered into the night. At first, I saw nothing but the tenebrous blend of shadow and tree, of wind and whisper. But then, as if my eyes adjusted to a spectrum of darkness beyond human seeing, I began to discern figures standing motionless among the trees. They were like those we had left behind, both there and not, present and absent. Jin's hand gripped mine, cold and clammy. "We can't stay," she repeated, a desperate edge to her voice now. Out there in the oppressive dark, with those silent figures watching, waiting, the night air seemed heavy with portents. We had left the asylum, but it hadn't left us. Indeed, some doors once opened might never be closed again. Not truly, not entirely. As the spectral watchers lingered just beyond the reach of sight, a subtle whisper filtered through the air. A stark, haunting melody that promised oblivion, that spoke of forgetting and of endless, peaceful dark. A decision loomed before us, stark and urgent. Flight, a ceaseless, fraught evasion of whatever we had roused that night in Harlow Asylum's forgotten halls. We fled into the night once more, Jin's hand locked in mine, her grip like iron. In the periphery of my vision, shadows seemed to flit and dance, always there yet always vanishing when faced directly. These watchers, remnants of Harlow Asylum's forsaken corridors, trailed us with an insistence that chilled the marrow in my bones. The car felt like a fragile sanctuary as we hurtled down the back roads. Each turn and twist threw pale light across the trees, briefly illuminating the relentless pursuit of those spectral forms. Every glance back was a confirmation of our dire situation. They had not given up. They would not give you. "Pay." "Maybe the city," Jin suggested, voice strained over the engine's roar. "Bright lights, crowded streets, maybe they can't exist there." There was hope in her tone, but it was frail, overshadowed by the encroaching sense of an inevitable conclusion. As dawn tinged the horizon with a reluctant gray, we merged onto the highway. The rising sun did nothing to dispel the cold dread that had settled deep within us. Instead, the light seemed to mock our plight, offering no warmth, no respite. We stopped only once, at a gas station flooded with fluorescent light. The normalcy of it, the mundane act of refueling, felt surreal. Inside, I purchased coffee, the clerk's face a blur, their voice an unintelligible mumble under the weight of my fear. When I returned, Jin was staring out the windshield, her face ghostly pale in the early morning light. "They're not just following," she murmured as I handed her the cup. "They're guiding us." Her words sank into me, heavy and dreadful. "Guiding us where?" "I don't know," she said, sipping her coffee, her eyes never leaving the horizon. "But it's somewhere they want us to be." The rest of the journey was silent, each of us lost in our thoughts, in our fears. The city's skyline eventually crept into view, steel and glass rising like a mirage. We wound through the traffic, the density of humanity around us both oppressive and comforting. We rented a small, nondescript room on the outskirts, one in a labyrinthine apartment complex where we hoped numbers might anonymize us, might shield us. The room was on the 12th floor, high above the city's ceaseless pulse. For a moment, it seemed we might have outpaced our pursuers. Nightfall brought a return of the whispering winds, the subtle hum of a melody that seemed both foreign and familiar. From the window, the city stretched out in a vast expanse of light and shadow. Nothing appeared on the streets below, no hint of the horrors that had chased us from Harlow's Asylum. Yet the feeling of being watched, of being guided, remained. I'll take first watch, Jin declared, pulling a chair up to the window. Her eyes were determined, but beneath the surface, I saw the same terror that flickered within me. I lay down, but sleep was a distant hope. Each sound from the bustling city below was a potential harbinger. Hours ticked by, marked only by the shifting of Jin's silhouette against the window. Then, abruptly, there was real silence. It fell like a curtain, sudden and complete. I sat up, heart pounding, looking over at Jin. She was standing now, her body rigid, staring down into the street. "They're here," she whispered, her voice breaking the silence like a crack through ice. "And they've brought the asylum with them." I rushed to her side and looked down. There, improbably, inconceivably, beneath the glow of street lamps and neon signs, the decrepit outline of Harlow Asylum sat, its walls shadowed and foreboding, occupying a space where just hours earlier there had been nothing but city. The building seemed both solid and insubstantial, a ghostly imposition on the urban landscape. How could it be? The logic of it, the impossibility, threatened to unhinge my mind. Yet there it was. The very source of our nightmare, replicated or transported, it didn't matter which, the result was the same. "They want us to go back," Jin said, her voice hollow. "To finish what we started, whatever that was." The decision lay stark before us. Entering the asylum again could mean our end, or it could mean closure. Leaving could mean an eternal chase, forever looking over our shoulders, forever haunted. Jin turned to me, her gaze piercing. "What do we do? Go back, go forward?" The choices welled up like a choke in my throat, each as terrifying as the other.